Southeastern Swim Club alumni. Thank God it's Friday Alumni Chat today. Our guest is Carly Mercer. I had a feeling today might be a bigger number, so we're going to change it up just a little bit from the previous ones. I'm going to ask you to put your questions in the chat, and if we want to try to do it regular, we will. But with two screens, I think it might be difficult. So I'm going to mute everyone except for Carly and myself, and then I will get started. Okay. You have the ability to unmute yourself, so if you have a question, I don't get to it, I will try to make sure I keep an eye on the chat. But hey, Carly. So this is Carly Mercer. Should I spotlight her?
Oh.
Did it work? Yeah, there's Carly. This is Carly Mercer, one of the alum from SSC and from HSC High School, and she's our guest today. Carly, what have you been up to lately?
Working from home. Lots of working from home, walking the dog, and working out in my living room and in this room too. So yeah, seems kind of repetitive, but it's all right.
Are you still doing things for Purdue? Are you able to do much?
Yeah. So I'll explain my job a little bit, because I think people, when they think of someone working in athletics, they think of usually coaches or athletic administrators, but there's a lot of different jobs, especially in a university. So what I do is, Purdue Athletics is kind of its own standalone entity. So the university doesn't actually fund Purdue Athletics. We have to fund ourselves for facilities, for scholarships, for the food that we provide our athletes, all of that, we fund it ourselves. And so what I do is I'm kind of like a salesperson for Purdue Athletics. Essentially, I fundraise for the athletes at our school. So I call donors who probably were Purdue alumni or former athletes for Purdue, and pretty much ask them to consider donating for Purdue Athletics. And so that's our way and how we are able to build new facilities. Like, we're going to have a new football stadium in the next 3 years, so we have a lot of fundraising for that. But without people like myself and my role, it would be very hard for Purdue to continue to get any better facility-wise. So that's kind of what I do. There's all kinds of jobs in Purdue Athletics, or any athletic department around the country, for universities especially. There's all kinds of jobs. There's marketing teams. There's people who do the finances for the university and the athletics side of things. There's people who run all of our events. There's all kinds of jobs. So it's actually a much bigger field than most people think, probably. So that's kind of what I do.
And we've seen that one of the industries that hasn't really slowed down is construction. Is the renovation of Purdue football stadium moving forward as planned?
Yeah, it is. It's still going. We have to get to a certain level of fundraising. So the dollar amount is about $120 million, which is a lot of money. And so we have to fundraise all of that. And, we have to get to a certain point, and then we can start constructing. So we're getting closer to that point. And I saw Matt's question, is Purdue's football stadium nicer than IU's? Absolutely. Of course it is. So.
Of course. Can you see those chat questions, Carly?
Yeah. Do you want me to start answering some?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can go ahead and answer some if you want. Okay. Abby,
go ahead.
best restaurant to eat in Lafayette. Yeah. That's a hard one. I think, well, best pizza is, well, shoot, why am I struggling to remember the name? Bruno's. Bruno's is the best pizza place. I would say the best Mexican is Fiesta, and they have extremely large burritos. They're super good. Those are probably my two favorite. I'd say I frequent those areas a lot. What about Purdue stood out to you when choosing a school? Well, I'll tell you kind of my whole story, and I think it's an important recruiting story too, and Andy knows this really well, and Matt does too. When I was being recruited, there's several, I had a few schools reach out to me, and I took 5 visits. I think you're still allowed 5 visits, and I actually took them all in a row. If I was going to suggest anything, don't take all 5 visits in a row. You're extremely worn out by the end. But one thing that we did when we did the recruiting process is that Andy and I sat down and we came up with some things that we wanted to look at in a school. And, we tried to stick within those parameters. And I looked at Tennessee, Ohio State, Purdue, Arkansas, and Louisville. And I actually ended up going to Arkansas my first year. And to be honest, not on the best reasons either. I kind of wish I wouldn't have gone there, but it was actually a really good lesson for me because, like I said, we kind of came up with a few things that I was supposed to kind of keep in the parameters of. And I don't think I looked at all of those. I kind of saw the money that they were giving me and jumped for that rather than looking at the bigger picture. And I ended up going to Arkansas, and there were parts of Arkansas I really liked and actually enjoyed. And, I had actually 2 other former HSC swimmers that were there with me, which actually made it really nice. But I ended up transferring because I didn't look at all of those kind of parameters that I was supposed to look at and or keep in mind. And so I ended up actually transferring to Purdue, and John Klinge, who's still the head coach, was super gracious and allowed me to come back and allowed me to take a spot at Purdue. And I think if I had to go back, the thing that stood out to me the most about Purdue was that, one, it was within the distance requirement that I had originally come up with. John is an extremely caring coach. Doesn't care. He cares about your swimming. Yes, that piece is important, but he also cares about your academics and yourself as a human being. He wants you to enjoy your time there. So that's something I actually remember when I told John no the first time. That was very hard. And I think the reason that was very hard is because I actually had made the wrong decision the first time. I should have told him yes. But I think the whole thing about Purdue and why I like it so much is because when you come here, it's very, very traditional. Like, there's so much about Purdue that people hold the tradition of Purdue very valuable. And there's so many things that we do, and that's like what we do as Boilermakers. And we're going to always do that. We're always going to fight for what we want, and we're going to work really hard and always stand true with what we believe in. And I think that's something that also I really liked about Purdue. So that's a really good question, and I probably talked too long about that one, but I thought I should give you the whole story, and it kind of encompasses recruiting and the importance of sticking with some of your parameters and staying with it. Oh, go ahead.
That was great, Car. That was awesome. That's what we need to hear. Yeah, great. Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Who is your favorite Purdue athletics donor that you get to work with? Well, Ben, you. So Ben is actually a former Purdue swimmer as well. So he's actually one of the folks that I get to call every once in a while and see. So, but he is a donor for Purdue, which is good. Let's see. The triple X is good. I do agree. I should have mentioned that too. Can you talk about some of the parameters you missed? Yeah. I think some of the parameters that we came up with was distance. I remember, I think I had like, I don't know, I think I had originally had like 5-hour distance or something. And actually Arkansas was further than that, it was 9. So that's one thing. I knew that I was looking for some part of a scholarship at least. So that was important to my family and I. And I think you have to be reasonable with that too. It's kind of a business if you think about it. You're hoping to get this amount, and you have to be kind of a little flexible, because especially coming in as a freshman, you might not get that at first, but that's something you should be able to talk about with that coach. If it's, if you want 75%, you might not get that your freshman year. But that's something when you're talking to that coach, you should be like, hey, I'd like to get to this point. What does that look like to you? Can I, say my sophomore year or junior year, can I work towards that scholarship amount? It's hard to get a full ride. And you got to remember, there's not a ton of people who are always going to get full rides. And so you got to be kind of reasonable with that. Scholarship's great, but you're there for not only that scholarship possibly, but also academics. You're there for the experience of being able to be in collegiate athletics, and swimming for, any kind of university, D1, D2, D3. And that's another thing that you got to remember to look at too, is do you want to be a D1 athlete, or do you want to be a D2 or D3 athlete? There's all kinds of great experiences no matter what level. And there's people who come out that are in D3 and they turn out to be fantastic swimmers too. So you got to keep an open mind. And I think that was something that I didn't keep an open mind on. I wanted to get out of Indiana, and I was young in my decision, and that definitely came out at the end, because I realized, I can be an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes away and still feel like I'm not at home. And because you're so busy, you don't really get to go home when you're only an hour and 15 minutes away. So that's something else I would say keep in mind, and definitely stay within what you agree upon when you first start looking at schools. Best high school memory. Probably in 2008 when we won all 3 relays at high school state. That was awesome. And I think it really scared the crap out of Carmel. Which we all enjoy doing. Let's see. Was it hard to balance school and swimming in college? And what worked best for you in terms of that? Yeah, I think it's harder than high school. So in high school, you obviously have to maintain a certain grade point average, and you need to be able to take care of yourself outside of school, and then also perform well at practice and at meets. I think I would say it's 2 levels above that in college, because there's all kinds of outside factors that come into play. When you're in high school, you're under your parents' roof. You kind of have a much more structured environment. But when you go to college, there's all kinds of these other factors that come into play. Now there's people who are doing stuff outside of practice that maybe you shouldn't partake in. You have to remember, it's okay to say no and stay away from that. And you need to set aside time for certain activities, like your personal life, your homework, and then also taking care of yourself. It can't be 2 extremes. You can't just swim all the time and then never do homework and go hang out with your friends all the time. You have to have a balance structured. And actually one of the men's coach for Purdue, Dan Ross, and Ben actually, I think, probably knows this, but he would always talk about this triangle that you have to meet. It can't be all one side or all this side. It has to be a balanced approach. And so you need to find that when you're in college. And I think the biggest thing that I would suggest is setting aside a certain amount of time every night that you do homework, setting aside amount of time during the week, or probably even more importantly, the weekend, that you hang out with friends. And just don't go too crazy, because if you go too far this side, your balance is out. And so you kind of have to find that balance yourself, but you kind of learn that a lot your freshman year. So it's kind of a learning game there. What was your favorite memory about going to Purdue? This is hard because I really loved my time at Purdue. Obviously, I came back because I liked it so much. My favorite moment, if I had to narrow it down, was, I don't know, I seem to like relays. But probably our relay at Big Tens my sophomore year. We got first in the 400 free relay, and that was really fun. And it's the last relay of the entire meet. And so after you're on the podium, you turn around just like you do at high school state, and you jump in the diving well. So that was really cool. And the people I was on that relay with were a lot of fun, and some really good friends of mine. So I'd say probably that's if I had to pick a favorite memory, that would be it. But overall, like, it's not, I don't even remember the times I swam half the time. Like, it was more, I remember more about the fun I had with my teammates at practice and outside of practice, and seeing them on campus when I was going to class. Like, that's the fun part that I remember the most. Did it take a while to choose a career, or did you have one set in place for a long time? How were you able to choose one? That's a really good question. It did take me a while, and I think it takes a lot of people a while. So don't feel like you have to find something immediately after school. There's some people that do that, and that's great for them. Like, some people think right away that they want to be doctors, and they stick with that forever, and that's great. But that's not how a lot of people do it, to be honest. I'm not even using my major. I graduated with speech, language, and hearing sciences, and that took me 2 years to figure out that I even wanted to do. And then after my senior year, I decided I wasn't going to go to grad school right away. I was going to swim 2 extra years. And then I ended up not going to grad school, and I ended up getting a job at Rush Diagnostics, which is in Indianapolis, really close to where you guys are. So I didn't know at all. And I think it's kind of a journey, like everything else, really, when you're trying to figure out what you want to do. I thought I wanted to be a CEO of a company when I was at Roche, and I was a project manager there, and I was the marketing manager there. And I ended up not liking that at all. And it's ended up being because I didn't have any time to myself. They worked me to death. The company's great, but I was just traveling all the time. And then I ended up doing tech sales with a smaller company in Fishers. And that was really cool. I ended up kind of figuring out that I love talking to people. You probably can tell that because I keep talking. But I liked helping people and wanted to be able to kind of have a goal in front of me. So sales was really nice. I didn't necessarily like that particular area of sales. And then this job opened up at Purdue, and my fiance happened to be up here too. So I decided I'd give working in collegiate athletics a try. And then I've loved it. It's really a cool job. It's a sales type of environment, but I get to talk with people who love Purdue, who enjoy talking to former athletes, and they want to give back to the university. And it's just kind of it evolved that way. I never thought I would come back and work at Purdue. That never was my thought when I graduated my senior year. So it's a journey. Let's see. Can you give us any insight on what life is like right now for current athletes, with current Purdue varsity student athletes? Yeah. Right now, with everything going on, it is it's a challenge for them. So, for example, there's a swimmer I know who she has a really good chance of making the Olympic team. And so, she's struggling right now trying to find training. But what's amazing to me and what makes me really proud is that she's doing everything she possibly can to stay active, keep healthy, and get ready to be back in the pool when she can be. So, you know, she went above and beyond. And this is what I think, you know, if I could go back and do anything, and if I had to do this, if we're in like an environment like this back when I was in school, I hope I would have reacted the way she did, because it's so amazing and it's really great and motivational to me. And I'm not even swimming anymore, but she went out and bought a inflatable pool, like a decent sized one. And she's figured out that she can use a bungee cord, strap it to a tree. She's found a wetsuit, and she is swimming in an infinity pool that she made herself. She's going, she's found weights online. She's lifting in this rinky-dink college garage. She's found an old bike. I mean, she's gone above and beyond to do whatever she can to stay active and stay motivated during this time. And I think that's really encouraging. And I've seen your guys' stuff on social media, like you guys are working out in your bedrooms and you're doing whatever you can to stay fit. And I think that's really great. So there are, I mean, a lot of our Purdue athletes are doing that now. Our football players, they're trying to find weight rooms that are open, which is really hard, but they're trying to do stuff as much as they can. So I think that's, I don't know, I think that's kind of like a Boilermaker spirit, if I'm allowed to say that. That's something that I think, you know, I'm proud of that. And I think that our athletes are handling it really well.
Hey, Carly, what's that swimmer's name?
Kirsten Mites.
Man, that is a great story.
Yeah, she's a beast. She is doing something similar to what I did. She's not on the team anymore, but she's training with the team. Her eligibility's up. So, but she's phenomenal. So.
Wow, yeah. The inflatable pool story is impressive.
Yeah. Actually, the guy that they found it on Facebook Marketplace, and the guy was selling it for $90. And one of her friends sent a video of what she was going to do with it. And then he realized like she was Olympic hopeful, and he gave it to her for free. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think she's going to send him like a signed kickboard or something, but
there you go.
Yeah. Which skills did you develop through swimming that benefit you in your personal or professional and personal life today? Yeah. I feel like everything. I think that's something that sets you apart as an athlete a little bit. You have to learn time management, organizational skills, how to interact with people in like conflict. I, for a fact, know that that's something that I've learned. You learn how to work harder than others. I think, especially as swimmers, I'm pretty biased about that. I think we're one of the hardest working group of athletes on the planet. I mean, we go in at 5:30, we swim for an hour and a half, we go to school, we come back at night, swim more, probably do some dry land. I mean, there's not many people that will do that. And I think that sets you apart. It gives you an idea like how to outwork others around you. So there's so many things to that. And I think there's all kinds of skills that you learn with swimming that you can apply to your interviews. People love to hear that you're an athlete. And when they hear you're a swimmer, they're like, oh, wow. They're like, I don't even know, like I swam in high school, but you swam all the way through college, or you swam like they're so impressed. So definitely like utilize your swimming as a tool, because you gained so much from it. And you don't even realize how much you're gaining now. But there's unlimited resource there, I feel like. So how would you compare the team dynamic at Purdue to HSC? Good question. It's a little different because the men's team is separate from the women's team. However, we still hang out. Like we would hang out like we did when we were in high school, which really was attractive to me too when I went there. Actually, at Arkansas, they only had a girls team, and so that's one of the things I didn't care for after a while. But no, Purdue it just feels like your family, and I think that's how it felt like at HSC. I hung out with the girls and the guys team like all the time. And you feel that way at Purdue too. It's just in a college setting, so it's very similar. And the dryland's really hard, so work hard in dryland, and that's one thing that sets HSC apart is our dryland's really good. Let's see. I think we all know what we are purchasing this week, right? Yes, infinity pools. What were your biggest challenges in transitioning from high school to college? It's a good question. I think the putting together a schedule, because again, when you're in high school, like you have all your classes during the day, and you have practice in the morning, practice in the evening, but it's much more structured. Like I knew when I had to go to English or I had to go to study hall. I knew exactly when I could go to my locker and get new books if I needed to. In college, it's like you have a class at 9:30, and then you might not have a class again until 1. And you have to walk to different buildings, and you have to kind of schedule out your day. And then you have to schedule practice in the middle of the day. And there's like some classes you know, if it's over practice, you might have to go to that class, especially if it's required for your major. And you might have to practice with the guys team for one day of the week instead of the girls team. So again, it's just, you gotta have to really figure that out. And it's not as hard as I'm probably making it sound. Your first week in school will probably be the most stressful because you're new and then you don't know where every building is. But after that, you figure it out really fast anywhere you go. And you figure out your schedule really fast. You start to figure out what works, what doesn't. It's not as hard as people think or make it up in their minds to think it is. You figure everything out really quickly because you're kind of forced to. So what was the Purdue employee reaction to Mitch Daniels' announcement yesterday about starting early and ending at Thanksgiving? It was really positive. And usually I hear the brunt of it because I hear from donors and they are opinionated and I'm not really allowed to have an opinion. But I've heard a lot of positive reaction. People want to get back to normal, I think is probably the biggest thing. And so they're excited that, you know, they're working towards some kind of normal or some way to be normal safely. So it was pretty positive.
As employees, did they elaborate at all? Like I actually, after I wrote that question, I realized he actually was talking about starting late, but ending early. And but then what is had they talked about the spring semester at all? When would it start?
I think the spring semester would start at a normal time. So after Christmas break, about a week or two. So I think mid-July. June and July are on my mind. Mid-January would be when they start.
Yeah. And that was received positively by the campus.
Yeah.
Good.
That's it.
I only read one news article and it didn't really address football, but what are are there any rumors floating around about, like, have you guys had any talks about football without people in the stands?
Yeah, there's been all kinds of rumors about football. No one's going to know until July at the earliest.
We need football.
Is the real answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need football. Every school needs football. They're your money-making sport. They bring in all the revenue, and the concession revenue is huge, and people forget that. You know, that would be detrimental to us, actually. So we're really hoping football works out. But there's all kinds of theories. There's, you know, we could start a game or two later. There could be actually a few teams we actually drop. So think like Boston College. They're on the East Coast. That's been hit the hardest. We could drop them. We could drop Maryland. We could skip all the bye weeks. That's another one. We could wait until the spring to have a football season. You know, I think it would be really hard to fill the stands halfway, you know, and plus if you think about it too, like there's a lot of season ticket holders and they have early access to buying their season tickets. So they've been buying season tickets since March. And it would be hard to go back and tell people like, hey, you can't come, but this guy can, because that's not really very fair. So it'd be really hard to have only a few fans in the stands, or like split them up some way. So, but I don't know at the end of the day. So these are all my guesses. But
yeah, I wonder if the Indy 500 is going to provide some of the answers, you know, if they continue to have that. And I mean, that's triple a football game. Anyway.
yeah.
All right, go back to the chat. Sorry.
What made you choose swimming as a sport over other sports? Well, when I first started swimming, I was doing other sports at the time. This is back when I was like 8 years old. I was doing softball, and I wasn't any good at softball. I was actually afraid of the ball, which is a problem when you're in that sport, because the ball, you know, you're getting pitched at, so that's not very good. And then I was also in volleyball, and I actually really enjoyed volleyball, but I think what was my deciding factor was, it was pretty obvious that swimming was the best sport for me. I was getting better at it every year, and I enjoyed it. And I actually, the thing that I think really changed it for me was when I found friends, like really good friends in swimming over the other sports. That's when I kind of really chose swimming. And actually, when I came to Southeastern Swim Club, that's when I was going to swim. That was my thing. And I think it was really when I started making really good, solid friends, and I saw them every day, and we went through the same thing together. That's when I picked swimming to be my sport. Best, funniest Andy story. Oh, I don't know. There's so many. Oh, goodness. I'm trying to think. I might have to come back to that one. I have to think about that one for a second.
I will add in that one of the coolest things about Carly, and I've told her this before, but Chris Plum, so when she said her favorite memory was winning all 3 relays, were you a sophomore?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Chris Plum, he's usually the coach at Carmel, is usually he doesn't give away many secrets, but he privately told me, like, the next year, even 2 years later, he's like, yeah, my whole team is terrified of Carly Mercer. They just see her and they get scared. And I thought that was the coolest thing. I was like, man, that is really cool.
Yeah. That's not bad. I like that.
Yeah, I bet.
I'd still be happy if they were scared of me today, but I don't know if they are. I'll come back to the funniest Andy story. I got to think about that one. One fan per section charge. Oh, yeah. I don't know if that's a question or a statement, but it's true. Did you know what you wanted to major in while you were in high school? I thought I did, but it changed. So I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. For the longest time, I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then I got to school, and I ended up not liking that. So I took a class my freshman year. Actually, at Arkansas, I took a class my freshman year, my first semester, and I actually think my second semester. It gave me an idea, like it tested me on my personality type, you know, what I liked, what I didn't like, and kind of gave me an idea of certain, like, came up with like a list of careers that I might be interested in. And that's when actually speech, language, and hearing sciences and physical therapy, and then there was media, like a broadcaster. Those 3 things popped up, and I tried all 3, and I'm still not doing it. So I guess my overall question is no, I didn't really know, because I'm not doing any of it, and I'm actually in an entirely different career. So your official visits were at very different schools all over the country. What recommendations do you have for high schoolers looking at schools, whether they're swimming or not? Again, I think you need to sit down and figure out, like, what your parameters are. Do you want to be, 3 hours away? Do you want to be, you want to get in-state tuition, which is like a huge plus, especially if you're not looking at a full ride, because college is expensive. and it's even more expensive out of state. So you want to take that into consideration. If you are in a sport, where do you, like, think about yourself and where you are with your swimming. Do you want to be someone who's contributing on the team, like at the championship level, or where do you want to be there? And that's an important question to ask yourself too, because if you are wanting to be in that position, you have to think realistically with your times, like, where do I sit there? And I think that's important for everyone to do, no matter where you are in your swimming career. That's one thing. Trying to think what else. I think you need to really think about what kind of coach you want too. And the reason I say that is I don't think I took that into consideration a little bit. And it's really hard too, because I didn't really know the college coaches that well. When I was being recruited, I kind of heard of them. I kind of went off the hype of each school, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I thought Tennessee was like it. I thought it was going to go there at one point. I used to think I was going to be a Longhorn because I wanted to be coached by Eddie Reese, and he's not even the women's coach. So you got to really remember, you got to think about those things too, and what you want in a coach. And I think the really cool part when I went to Purdue is that, and something that sets John apart from a lot of other coaches, but he cared about me as a person, which is more valuable than any of you could know. He cared about my swimming. He wanted to help. He was going to do whatever he could to make me faster. He was very good at listening to me, those kinds of things. And then I think more importantly too, he really cares about your academics, and Purdue does too. They hold that to a high standard. A lot of people on the East and West Coast think Purdue is an Ivy League school, and we're totally not. But that's how people think of our grades. They think we are smart people, and we are. So I think those things you have to remember. Figure out what your parameters are and stick to those. Don't go outside of them, or you're going to make a mistake like I did. Don't do that. Mercenary, yep. Did you miss Arkansas at all after you transferred? No, I didn't. Not at all. I missed Aubrey Hertzler, who went there, and Molly Milbourne, because they were my teammates. And I missed my roommate. I did miss her, and actually telling her was probably really hard, because I did develop a really good friendship with her. But the overall experience, no. I was so excited to go to Purdue. I knew when I told John, like, I wanted to go there, like, it felt right. Like, I could feel it in my heart. Like, it felt right. And plus Christina Jacobs was there. So, and I don't know if any of you have talked to her yet, but she's like a firecracker that's like 5'1". So, and she's awesome. And she used to swim for HSC too. So I was really excited to be there. But yeah. Oh, I have to go back to my favorite Andy story. Oh, man, this is hard. I don't know. There's so many. Okay. I know. Here's one that's come up. I don't know why we did this, but it was kind of funny. I think we're like practicing like wrestling moves or something at Dryland. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We would put you guys in a circle, and you had to push your teammate another person out of the circle.
Yeah. Like, not in a mean way, but like kind of hard.
It was trying to make you guys more aggressive.
Yeah. I don't know why, but that cracked me up. Because I was like, this is kind of weird, but we're doing it and it's fun.
Well, you were really good at it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm a scary person, but apparently I am. So I think that's one I could think of. And I remember us doing a New Year's Day practice with these balloons. So I think you guys still do it. But there's practices in the balloons and, throwing the darts at those. And I think we had one that we hit, and it was like fun day for the whole day. And so we literally just jumped off the diving boards the whole practice and kind of did whatever we wanted. That was fun. We used to play, we called it, it was, it's called Mongolian Battle Ball, but it's like, what am I thinking?
Very brutal water polo.
Yeah, very brutal water polo. Those were interesting, but they were really fun. You got to be careful when you do those. Those are probably my favorite. So I'll think of more too, but those are the three that come to mind. Okay, you've talked about coaches that care about you as a person or a student. I think almost all college coaches say that during the recruiting process. What are the actions or proof you experience or some key points that they should be looking at for evidence? That's a really good question. Yeah, every college coach says they care about their athletes. And it will, if you have, you should keep your parents involved in your recruiting process because they're smart people. And your coaches, you should keep Andy and Matt involved and Ben, because they're going to kind of know the coaches a little bit better because they've probably already interacted with a lot of them already. That will help you. The other thing too is when you're on your recruiting visit, you're going to be able to tell how the team interacts for the most part. Like when I went to Louisville, I could tell about their team dynamic. I could just tell. And it wasn't something necessarily for me, so I didn't pick that school. It's a great school and their program's phenomenal. They've produced some really good swimmers, so it's not a bad program. It just wasn't the program for me. And I think you just have to kind of keep, again, like if it's something that's really important to you, you need to bring in all the people that you trust on this side, your coaches, your club coaches, your parents who know you really well and kind of they're protective of you. They want you to have what you want. And so they're going to be able to kind of be a good sounding board for you after you leave a visit and be like, hey, I don't know that I got the vibe that they really cared about their swimmers, or I did get that vibe that they really do care about their swimmers, especially how the swimmers interacted with each other. It felt like a family. Like those people are there for you. And so utilize them in the recruiting process. Don't go at it alone. And don't leave their opinion behind because it's a very important opinion. Hopefully that helped you there with that question. It is a really good question. Coaches will say a lot, especially if they want you. That's something you have to remember. It's a business. How did you pick a roommate in college? Well, my sophomore year, your freshman year, you don't really get to pick your roommate. That's kind of, or at least I didn't. I loved my roommates in my freshman year. I had a good relationship with a lot of them. But my sophomore year, I had moved late. I had told Purdue I was coming late, really late in the year in the springtime. And so I didn't really get to pick anyone because I didn't really know. Most people at Purdue pick their roommates usually actually in the fall for the upcoming year. So I was really behind. And so there was actually a girl who was also transferring that year. So we lived together. So I didn't really get to pick that year. My junior and senior year, and then my fifth year at Purdue, I kind of picked my roommates. I kind of picked them. I lived in a really big house with a lot of swimmers. So we all just kind of lived. It was a bunch of girls that lived together. So we kind of all got together and were like, yeah, we'll live together. It wasn't like, I don't know. I was friends with a lot of my teammates on the team. So it was really easy for me to live with whoever. I know that's something can be kind of a challenge because, there's things that come up with roommates that like, hey, one person's cleaner than the other. You have to learn how to handle that. And I think that's a really good life lesson for you to figure out when you are living with a roommate. Because I know people who have roomed with their high school friends and it ends up not working out very well because this is the first time, like they were good friends when they were living at their parents' homes and they had their own little home experience. But when you bring them together, one's clean, one's not. And it kind of, they might get in a little tiff. You have to figure that out. And I think that's something that I would, when you are looking for a roommate, think about that. Learn how to handle it well. Don't get overly mad at your roommate because they're human and so are you. So has it been insightful with a fiance that is is a college football coach and does a lot of recruiting? Yeah, it is. It's like really busy all the time, especially in the fall, like recruiting wise. They're taking recruits every weekend almost. And there's even a section at the football games where all the recruits sit. Their weekend's pretty packed. In the springtime, recruiting's huge. That's when they're usually traveling a lot, and going to visit families, rolling out kind of like the red carpet, if you will, for these athletes. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot about recruiting there that there's just so much involved.
You know how you mentioned that you should try to look for coaches that care.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, despite the big timeness of college football, I know that there are coaches out there that really do care. And I know, and I have a lot of respect for your guys' staff. Has it been kind of interesting to be engaged to a guy who's trying to deal with that? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a lot of work, right?
It is a lot of work. Yeah. I mean, there's so much work that goes into recruiting just one person. I mean, with swimming, it's, I don't know. I don't want to say it's easier. It's just different because you have times that you can go off of.
Right.
Coaches will watch your videos. Like if you're at high school state's filmed, you have Tony, commentating, and that's all filmed, so they can see it. And a lot of them go visit, especially Indiana swimming. They go visit Indiana swimming a lot, so they'll see you swim. But they primarily go out based off your times and what your coaches say about you to them. With football, it's a little different because they don't have, like, a running back doesn't have a time. You watch their film and you watch their agility on the field and how they move. And I think that's why it's a little different with football and other sports, because it's more based on like how they look on the field. How's their movement? Are they quick? Are they strong? Are they powerful? Are they slow moving and sluggish? Like, that's the things that they're looking for in football. That's a little different. The whole recruiting weekend for any sport is massive. I mean, your coaches are putting in a ton of time to even have you on campus, and they're paying for your meals. They're having you interact with the team. They're learning about you every second that you're there. And that's why I think it is so important when you are being recruited or you are visiting a school, regardless if you're being recruited or not, people are watching. And so you got to be yourself, but you got to be present that weekend and be learning. You don't want to be not taking it seriously, because they're going to notice, and that's going to actually reflect negatively on you if you're not taking it seriously when you're on a recruiting trip. And that's actually something that when we were recruiting people on our team and they were like on their cell phones texting the whole weekend, we didn't like that because when you're here, you're with your team a lot. And so if you're not being very interactive with people, like, that's something that we're like, she's fast. Yeah, she seems nice. I hope she interacts with us more. That's usually what we'd say. And it goes along with that with all sports: football, softball, basketball, anything.
I think that's really interesting, because I think that and you're talking about, like, you're being evaluated by fellow teammates and some coaches, but I think there's still a little bit, like, the younger age think, everyone's always on their phone, it's okay. But anyone that's just a little bit older still takes that as a little bit of a sign of disrespect or a sign of disinterest.
Yeah.
And I just think it's important to I'm really glad you pointed that out. I think that's a really hard concept right now for young people.
Yeah. It's hard. You want to see what everybody's doing on TikTok. I understand.
Yep, I get it. I agree.
I don't have a TikTok.
Yeah, that was the next question.
No. I don't have a Snapchat either. Outside of swimming, what would you recommend young college students do on a campus to build their resumes and support future careers? Do as much as you can outside of class, but also being able to be balanced as well. Get involved in an internship every summer if you can. If not, if you can do it over the year and balance schoolwork and your social life, and do it. But a lot of people do internships over the summer just because it's a really great experience. It gets you in the business world, and that would be just get involved as much as you can, because this is the time when you have more time than you realize when you're in college. And that's when you should be filling it up with things that are going to help you with your future career. And I know, like, when you're in college, it's hard to want to do because you're kind of free. You're able to enjoy your time with your friends, and that's a lot of fun. But make sure when you are there, you're making the most of it in every aspect. And I actually think the girls team that I've been able to interact with now, they do a really great job of that. They do a way better job of it even when I was here. You know, I took advantage of it. I wish I would have even taken more advantage of it, because when you go to that first job interview, you're going to feel like, I'm so unprepared. But if you've done everything as much as you possibly can when you're in college, you're going to be able to put that on your resume, and it's going to stand out. So do what you can. I'm trying to think. I even, like, when I was in school, I like made something so that I could like fit it into my schedule, so that I could have something else besides swimming on my resume. And that really stood out a lot. I talked about that piece in every interview, and I still do.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like, because my schedule is so busy over the summer with swimming, like I created a non-for-profit when I was at Purdue as a student athlete. And so utilizing that as my internship was really important, because when we're swimming all year round. Swimmers swim all year round. They don't get really a break. And so when I was in school, it's like, well, I need to come up with something if I can't do an internship or don't feel like I have enough time to do an internship well. And so what I did was create a non-for-profit for Purdue athletics, and that kind of became my internship for I started at into my sophomore year, so the next 2-3 years. So, but I got involved in something, is my point.
Yeah.
I created something. I used my resources and created something so that I could stand out later down the road.
I didn't know about that. What is it still around?
It is. It needs to be revamped. That'll be my side job here in the next few months.
After you get done getting married and
yeah, hopefully, and after we figure out what we're doing with the football and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well,
it's kind of been on the back burner, but yeah.
We've only got about 5 minutes. Does anyone else have a question? I actually texted Jake and asked her to jump on, so she said she's on a call. She's going to try, though. That would be hilarious.
That would be.
I told Coach Klingy in a text that you were being very gracious, and the story about the inflatable, and guys, I think this is interesting. If you don't mind me, he texted me back and he said, Kirsten's 1 in a million swimmer. I've coached her 6 years, and I've never seen her have a bad attitude or not work hard. I'm probably not supposed to say this, but she's probably the least talented national team member, but was 3rd in the country and 11th in the world in the 400 last year, completely because of her toughness and work ethic. Yeah. She always finds a way to work harder and get better. Carly is a rock star and is killing it at Purdue. I'm so proud of her. That's great. That's great. That's really cool.
Yeah. Kirsten's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that we have, Abby Harder coming to kind of continue the tradition. And it's always, Joe, well, a lot of guys, Ben and Joe Young had such a great experience at Purdue. And as an IU guy, I can honestly tell you that the thing I'm most jealous of is your president. He's a total bad donkey dude, man. He's something else.
Yeah, he's the boss.
Well, guys, if no one else has any questions, we're gonna let Carly go. Carly, this was awesome.
Yeah, it was so good. I saw so many faces I've coached a long time ago.
I bet.
So, yeah, it's making me feel old, but that's all right.
Yeah, there were a lot of people on here, huh?
Yeah, cool. Well, keep working hard.
I got to go back. I was taking attendance on this. I offered attendance for people on this, and there's a lot of people I didn't even know were on here. Wow.
That's awesome. Wow.
Well, Carly, thank you.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Keep working hard.
Have a great day.
Thanks. You guys too.
All right. See you.
Bye. All right. Bye, everyone.